3, 2, 1. And here we are with Andre Wright, and I want you to know that I wore this hoodie because of you. I know that one of the things that you do, we were just talking before we came on the air here about all the things that you do and that you're passionate about, and I can't wait to talk to you and hear your stories. We have a mutual friend in Cooper here, and I've been hearing your name for over a year now, and this is the first time I ever got to meet you and sit down with you. So welcome, Andre, and introduce yourself.
I appreciate you for having me. I'm Andre Wright.
A little close. Back up.
Back up just a little bit.
Close.
There you go.
How about that?
It's
That
all
close?
good.
Perfect.
All right, well, then I ain't have to move. Well, let me say that again. I'm Andre Wright. I'm with Born Leaders United. Also Humanize My Hoodie. I'm a designer, father of 3, husband of 1. I usually like to throw that one in there to get a good giggle. But I'm just a person that cares about people. I care about society. I care about design. I care about creativity. I care about, making a difference, I guess, I just care, you know what I mean? Like, I'm one of those people that just really, wake up every morning with his 2 feet on the ground, ready to go and tackle any kind of obstacle that might come my way or success that might come my way that day.
I think that's great. And, you're clearly passionate about the things that you're doing. That's what we were just talking about. When Cooper sent me a text last night as we were kind of getting excited to meet you today, and he said, there's so much we could talk to him about. He's an entrepreneur, he's an artist, he's a designer, he does all this stuff in the community. So before we kind of started recording, you mentioned some of the things that you thought would be really interesting, your childhood and kind of how you approach life and the projects you're doing. So go ahead, man. Tell us all about you and where you came from and where you're going now.
Yeah, no doubt. Where I came from, originally born and raised in Waterloo, Iowa. So I'm a late 70s baby. I won't go into any extinction of where exactly I'm at in the years, but
I was born in 78.
Okay,
put it out
hey,
there, so.
That's what's up. Okay, I feel more comfortable saying I was born in 78 too.
There you go.
Yeah, so late 70s baby. I grew up with a brother, and I grew up in a 2-family household with a mother and a father. And growing up as a kid, kind of where I got I cut my teeth was like as a child, knowing what I always wanted in life early. And, we grew up in poverty, like having a mother and a father in the house, but still having to wait in the government food cheese lines, was a hard thing for me. And seeing other kids have things that I couldn't afford to have was a tough thing for me. So it forced me to be creative young, meaning that, there was things that I would do that most kids couldn't do, would be like cut out paper dolls, right? When we couldn't afford the He-Man and G.I. Joes, I would actually create those He-Man and G.I. Joes so me and my brothers would have things to play with,
That's awesome.
And so I think a lot of my creativity started at a very, very early age, and I always knew what I wanted, right? Like most kids grow up not kind of knowing, trying this and trying that, but at a very early age, I knew that I was going to do something with art. And as I got older, I began to hone that craft. One of the things my father used to say is, you need a couple hours of constructive time every day. Well, that's pretty tough for a kid. A couple hours would mean you either drawing for a couple hours or you playing the piano for a couple hours. I never played the piano. I just would draw for a couple hours. When I got in trouble, punishment, I would draw. If there was something to celebrate, if there was a feeling, I would draw. So I was always drawing, like all the time. In class, 2nd grade, you want to draw? We have a contest. I'll see whoever draw the best, get the girl, In 2nd grade, we were doing stuff like that. And one thing I always remember from my childhood is I grew up in a park. The park was my backyard. So imagine that as a child. There was a red fence that blocked the park from my actual house. So we spent a lot of time in the park. And sometimes there would be no kids around, and it'd be just me laying on the merry-go-round looking up in the sky and dreaming at that early of an age, This is 2nd and 3rd grade. You know, sometimes I look at my children, my 3 children. I'm like, man, where y'all ain't dreaming like me. I used to be, you know, I used to play with dirt when I didn't have nothing to do. Now they got the phones and stuff. But, you know, as I honed that craft, you know, in high school, you got to think like, you know, I played basketball, and I played basketball all my life. That was like my second love, was like to play basketball, you know. But I knew I wasn't going to be, you know, like the star player on the team. There was way better players than me, and these guys was tall. I was tall, but I wasn't tall enough. I had a really good left hand, but it wasn't just, you know what I mean? It was just one of those situations where I understood that I had to make a decision. Most kids probably would have just stayed out for the team because, you know, at that age, and when I was a junior and senior in high school, man, drawing wasn't like a cool thing.
Right.
It wasn't cool. Like, nerdy art kid over there in the corner drawing. You know what I'm saying? Like, that wasn't a cool thing. But I liked that. Mm-hmm. I liked the fact that I wasn't like the rest of everybody else, and I had this differentiator that made me unique to everybody else. All my friends was playing basketball and football. In fact, all of them got scholarships to play basketball and football at different schools, but I was the only kid to get an art scholarship. That's awesome. I got an art scholarship my first year to Iowa Central Community College, Fort Dodge. Full ride. Yeah, I was pretty impressed. Yeah. You know, I was pretty proud of myself. But after that first semester, I lost my scholarship. You know, I got all Fs. I mean, so it's one of those when you get in college, it's like, you know, I had never experienced anything like this. People from all over, it's kids from all over, it's girls everywhere. I mean, it was overwhelming, you know, my first year of school. And because of that, I made a lot of bad decisions. A lot of bad decisions. Way too many bad decisions. I was first time out on my own, you know. I never been in any type of situation like that before. So next thing you know, now I'm working at Ron Weber with a telemarketing headset on my head while I'm at school. I'm still taking art classes. I still have a passion for art, but I'm broke. I don't have no money. That's a problem. Yeah. As a college kid, I needed money. I mean, I remember having to ask my roommate for $20, and he didn't have it. He had to ask his mom. I said, oh, this is really bad. You know, like, when you don't got no money, desperation kicked in, and it damn sure kicked in for me. I was like, hey, man, look, I got to make some changes, like, right now. Mm-hmm. And I did. Not the right changes, but I had to make some changes because otherwise, you know, I was in desperation mode. I was in school. I was doing great things. I was in school. I was working, but my job wasn't paying the bills. You know, It was tough. I was in the process of probably even dropping out. You know, like, man, maybe I shouldn't be going to school. You know, can I do something with art without having to go to college for it? In the phase of all that, in the midst of all that craziness, man, there was this guy that was in one of my classes. He was an illustrator. I had never seen anything like that before, and I started to take a liking to his work. And he would make these really interesting illustrations. And I'm like, man, I could draw. Why can't I make that stuff? And so I started to challenge myself. Man, you need to figure out how to make that stuff. This is before YouTube, and you can go look up YouTube videos. And, you know, I bought my first computer and all this different stuff. You know, like, this was before people could just, like, go and look something up.
Yeah. I think people forget about that. You know, we're obviously in about the same age range. I have a lot of patients that are teenagers and middle schoolers and so forth that'll ask me things like, wait, why didn't you just Google it or so forth? And
exactly.
It's like we didn't have that back then.
We did.
Did you grow up looking at comic books or anything? You talk about illustration or not really?
Yeah, I grew up looking at comic books. My favorite character was always the Green Lantern.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I liked the Green Lantern. Well, I think because he was black, too. There was a Green Lantern that was black and he was white. And I never got it, but I was like, at least they got one black one, too. You know, I could relate to this guy, you know what I'm saying? So I grew up liking the Green Lantern. What's the guy, the Hornet guy? Is
the Green Hornet?
The Green Hornet. I liked him, too. And then, you know, as a kid, they had the golly, what's the name of the superhero that used to be on the Bill Cosby show? Not the Bill Cosby show.
So Fat Albert.
Fat Albert.
Fat Albert and the gang.
But there was a superhero with them too, right? Wasn't it a superhero? There was a spinoff in the 80s.
Oh, I don't remember that one. I remember Fat Albert and the gang, but Cooper's gonna find something here for us. But I didn't remember that, but I remember Fat Albert and the gang for sure.
Yeah.
The Brown Hornet?
The Brown Hornet.
Oh,
That's
there you
him.
go. Yeah.
Yes, that's my man. That's all. I grew up liking him and watching him and taking a liking to him. Watching DuckTales, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Scooby Doo. Of course, the classic stuff, man. That's where I built my, my database. Think about that. I was drawing those characters, no problem. I would draw a character. My thing was life art. I could sit here and replicate you, just like this. And it was this guy. His name was not Dana, but his name was Wesley Van Arsdale in high school. And Wesley was an amazing artist. And I used to try to emulate him and try to bite his style. And I picked up my own style in the process of that. But my thing was life art. I could replicate you with a pencil. When I started doing design on the computer, though, I taught myself how to do everything with my right hand. But I'm a left-handed person.
Okay.
So I started to use the mouse with my right hand. And this is when I brought my first computer. The first thing I learned how to do was to illustrate, because I like drawing. So I would take a drawing, scan it in the computer, and then I would re-illustrate that drawing with my right hand. And what used to freak my friends out, they're like, man, how you left-handed, you do all your art with your left hand, but now you can do art on the computer with your right hand?
Yeah.
It's like, what's wrong with your brain? They used to be like, what's wrong with your brain? Like, how are you able to do this
Dude,
stuff?
everything's right with your brain. You're like ambidextrous in your art. That's fantastic.
Which I think that's interesting too, just a story of that, being able to be self-taught. Like, all this stuff's self-taught. I mean, I went to school for it, but I was still, when I went home, I wouldn't watch TV. I didn't even have cable or nothing. I didn't start having cable till I basically got married almost. The TV used to be in the corner, but never on. I used to always be in front of my computer because
you were practicing. You were committed
I was
to your art.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was studying my craft. I was in it every single day, and that's why I tell the young people, if you really want to be good at what you do, just work on it every day. If you work on your thing every day, there's no way nobody could tell you. Your confidence is going to be up. You're going to know you're the best. All those different things come out.
Super impressive, I think, especially for that age, because you got to be talking about your early 20s.
Early 20s. This is time when I'm supposed to be out flowing with, having all the women or whatever you're supposed to be doing at 20, testing drugs out, all this stuff, right? But I'm not. I'm in the trenches and I'm working. And I knew that all that time that I was giving myself was going to pay off at some point. I just never knew what the clock was going to be, and in the process of that, as I'm telling you this story, because we could talk about Humanize My Hoodie and all this stuff that I've been doing recently all day, but the stuff that most people don't know is all the stuff that I did way before they start seeing me on the Facebooks and the YouTubes and the Instagrams. The stuff that they don't have documented is the stuff that they really need to be paying attention to, because when you get here and people see you, they like, oh man, I could just do that. Nah, it wasn't that easy. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was a lot of pitfalls, man. And in the process of that, man, I picked up another really bad skill, which was hustling. I learned how to sell marijuana, right? And that was due to lack of not having the finances and the right people around me. I never had a mentor when I was coming up as a child. I mean, I even had a mother and father, but I never had anybody tell me, give me any game other than, this is how you can make some money if you wanted to make some money, extra money while you were in school. So I did that while learning my craft. So I'm learning my craft, but at the same time, I'm doing dirt that I'm not supposed to, and finding it very hard to sleep at night too. At the same time, I done moved my brother and my roommate in, and I got them working shifts. It became overwhelming, and I had two sides of this coin. Right? I had the heads and the tails, and I had the choices to make. But I still had people around me that I had to support too, because I was the leader of this whole thing. So of course, I had to put this all together, and then at the same time, I had to make sure that everybody survived it too. You know?
So you're saying
this isn't Fort Dodge.
You're saying it was hard for you because marijuana was illegal and that was sort of messing with your head, or it was hard for you because you were divided between that and your artwork? Like what?
I think it was a little bit of both. I think I was divided between that and my artwork because here's on one hand you have this person that's aiming for greatness, but at the same time you got this person that has financial and economic depression, and how do I still do this even after I told you that my job doesn't work? I've been working at this job forever, and I don't have any degrees to go get a better job. I have to do what I got to do, but there's this end of greatness. Like, if I could stop doing this and focus more on this without having to worry about this as much, then I can. So what I needed to do was speed up here to support this. I had to go faster so I can stop doing this. You know, like I can have enough to just be able to do this. That was my thought process back then as a young 20-year-old man, you know?
Sure.
And I don't say that to glorify it. I just say that only to show that I had all these obstacles too, right? Like people look at Andre and say Andre only is able to his greatness is here, but they never know all the other stuff too, which I think makes it a more beautiful story.
Definitely.
And I don't really talk to people about that either, so you kind of get an exclusive.
Dude, I appreciate it. Well, I mean, I think there's a truism in life, which is if you look at anybody who's good at doing anything, they make it look really easy. So I can use references with you because we're the same age. So when you watch Michael Jordan play basketball, you think to yourself, I could totally dunk because he makes it look so effortless. If you watch a good stand-up comedian, a professional ballet dancer, a really good singer or rapper or artist, you think, oh, that doesn't look. You hear people say, oh, my 2-year-old could have done that piece of art that sold for $2 million. But then when you decide to go out to the court or to get on stage with a microphone at a
Like,
stand-up comedy club, it's really hard.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is so like you say, it's easy to look at anybody, you or anybody else who's made it to any sort of level it's above the norm and to be like, wow, that's not that hard. Give it a shot yourself. And it takes that perseverance that you're talking about.
It do. And a lot of resilience. I mean, like I said, when I know I got stuff in my closet and I can't sleep at night because I know that if somebody was to come in here right now, I'm going to prison, that's a different type of feeling.
Yeah.
You know, I can recall back to how I felt, and that's all I ever think about from that times is the paranoia. I think I was more paranoid than anything. I mean, from people trying to harm me. You know, people was pulling guns. I mean, this was in my lifestyle. But because I was in that lifestyle, it was everything that came with it. I had to accept it. Whether I was going to jail, prison, whether I was, getting robbed. You know, I had to accept all that stuff.
Did you ever get robbed?
Did I get robbed? No, I never got robbed.
Okay.
I got some people. Yeah, I got robbed, not with gunpoint, but people steal money.
Okay.
You know, like you might send money somewhere and it never
made it.
Yeah.
Pretty common in the black market marijuana.
Yeah.
I
it is.
You mean that the courier system is not foolproof in the drug mule
Especially
business?
around 9/11, when that 9/11 stuff happened, it was a lot of people that happened too.
Yeah.
When that happened, like the borders locked down, it was just crazy. I don't know what happened. It was just like for months, you couldn't find nothing. I remember that vividly.
I don't want to derail us too far from your life story, but I am curious since it's coming up. What are your thoughts on? There's two pieces to this I'd like to ask you about. One is, what do you think about marijuana legalization movements? And then number two, prison sentences are dramatically higher for marijuana offenses, and that seems to carry a race element to it. So let's do it piece at a time. So what are your thoughts on the marijuana legalization movement in America right now? And just as somebody who used to work in the industry and a smart guy that lives in a state where it's barely medically legal and definitely not recreationally legal, what's your take on that?
I think it should be legal. I think if that's something you want to do with your body, then that should be I mean, we smoking cigarettes, we got alcohol everywhere.
Yeah.
I think those are a lot more harmful to us than marijuana use is. So let's be smart. You know, like the second part of your question. So I'm for that. Just let me just be straight up. Like I'm for legalizing marijuana everywhere. I campaign with them if I could.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? But when it becomes abusive, I'm not for that. And I'm not for children using it and becoming abusive with it. But if you can be a responsible marijuana user, then yeah, do it. And legalizing it is the best thing that our country can do right now if we're looking at tax dollars and trying to, you know, take care of communities. When I'm looking around and there's still homeless people on the streets, and y'all, I mean, there's a way to fix all this stuff. And we've looked at models like Colorado and other places which actually have improved due to them legalizing marijuana. So there's business models out there that's showing us that if you are able to do this on a state level, then federally, I think we can do it all over.
Yeah.
And then as far as the prison population, I'm happy that they letting those folks home. I was one of those people. I ain't never go to prison for it, but I mean, like you might as well said I could have went to prison. I mean, I had someone save my life. I was looking at 5-10 years.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
My father-in-law wouldn't have saved my life during that time. My life would be a whole lot different. You know what I'm saying? So
Totally.
So I know the whole trick with the prison and black folks going to prison. It's all about population control. I mean, if you strip us away from the community, your family, and everything else in the community, and you leave just the mother and the child, man, that's an effective strategy to destimulate the population, to just disseminate the population. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The man is I mean, I know I'm in my house. I know. Like, I'm not going nowhere. This my kids, my wife, I'm not going. You're going to have to put me up under the grave. I know how important it is to have a male figure in the house, and I understand what the system is trying to do to our men.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing this, what they do is they leave the kids at home. The kid becomes a father. Then he goes to school. They got the teachers trying to tell this kid what to do, but you can't tell this kid what to do. He's the man in the house.
Right.
How you trying to tell me what to do when I run my whole house?
Mm-hmm.
And you sitting here trying, what? I make more money than you do. Like, don't try to talk to me about no classroom So that's the mentality of these young guys that lose that father figure. They don't have any discipline.
Is that structure more defined in the black community, you think, than in the white community?
I think so. I think it's very more definite. It's more visible. You know, I don't know if white folks have to deal with that as much. I mean, I grew up in a white neighborhood too. If I go back to my story, I grew up in a black and white neighborhood. All the way up to third grade, fourth grade. Yeah, all the way up to third grade. I grew up in the Ferguson Field neighborhood, Willow Street, which is the east side of Waterloo.
Okay.
All black. I rarely saw white people unless we was at stores and stuff. Man, everybody in my neighborhood was black.
Mm-hmm.
Then, as we got older, my parents moved us out of that neighborhood because they saw where we was going. You know, like they saw that, man, if we stay here, these guys gonna get themselves into some trouble. So we moved to a white neighborhood, and we got way more trouble in that neighborhood than we probably would have gotten to the other neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't all white, but it was predominantly white, meaning that all my neighbors was white. I never had no black neighbors during that time. It was in Longfellow, Greenbrier, in the Greenbrier area, and we're probably one of 4 black families that lived on that street or on those blocks. So I got a chance to get to know white families very well, and they got to know black families very well, and it gave me an advantage as an adult over some of my friends who probably never had any interaction as a kid with the white person. So just to, like, when white people say they afraid of black people, sometimes the same thing for black people, because we don't have any interactions with white folks. So we like, man, they trying to harm us. So they, you see what I'm saying? But me, I had a differentiator because my neighbors was white. I was able to go inside their house and eat dinner with them infiltrate, understand their family structure. They could come over to my house, understand the black family structure, which is very different than they structure. I understand what, you know, to kick you out the yard at the early age and what that meant. I dealt with racism at a very early age because I had lived around all white people. We was the only black people, of course. They jumping on us. Of course, I dealt with racism at a very early age. I understood what racism was. I had it happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
I got in a fist fight. I see my dad get in a fist fight with a guy, our neighbor, in the backyard over him saying racial remarks to my brother.
Huh.
You see what I'm saying? So I had to deal with that at a very early age. You know, speeding right along though, like I think it helped me understand, you know, the way society was going to actually be.
Okay.
You know,
how so?
Because it's like if I was to live, I mean, I look at Iowa as a depiction of America right now. Iowa, in general, like not Iowa City because it's not as
right. University community is a little bit different than other small town Iowa. I want to say that I think this is an amazing conversation, and I like having it because I think listeners that don't live in Iowa probably think that, one, either we're all white, or two, that there's not the same kind of urban issues that if we were in Chicago or New York or LA, they'd go, well, of course, it's Cabrini Green, it's Harlem, it's whatever. But I mean, you're talking about Waterloo. I grew up in Des Moines, where, you know, clearly there'd be reports on the radio and the news of gang activity, and you go, gang activity in Iowa? Well, it's Iowa's still America, but I think it's good to hear, for people that don't live in Iowa, these kind of stories. So I appreciate you sharing all this.
Yeah, think about this. You know, I'm from a place where it's 14% black. Waterloo is 14% black. We have the most black folks in the state of Iowa. So if you want to see blackness, come to Waterloo.
Okay, so the highest black population in Iowa is in Waterloo. Okay,
but
I didn't know that.
The problem with that stat is, not that stat, but the problem with Waterloo is 40% of the black population is incarcerated. 40%.
Wow.
That's almost half.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people.
It's depressing to hear that. So there's a huge issue when it comes to segregation, access, when it comes to resources, when it comes to economics, when it comes to home ownership, when it comes to everything, we're last on the totem pole. They put out an article in USA Today about Waterloo, and they said that Waterloo was the number one worst place for the black person to live in all of America.
Wow.
In little old Waterloo, Iowa,
Huh.
the place that I was born from. And that's depressing.
Yeah.
That's really sad. I don't know what the answer is. I do know what the answer is. We need more stories like mine. We need more. It can't just be me. We need like 50,000 of these. The 40% that's incarcerated, we need their story.
Yep.
And they need resources. They need support.
Damn, that's crazy. Right here. These are the 15 worst cities.
So for those of you that are listening, we can't show it on YouTube because they may pull us, but we have an article called The 15 Worst Cities for Black Americans. It's from USA Today. We're scrolling down. Trenton, New Jersey, Springfield, Illinois, Fresno, California.
Minnesota,
Kankakee,
number 4.
Illinois. Decatur. There's a lot of Illinois on there. There's another Illinois.
Look, Minnesota.
Racine, Wisconsin, number 3, and Milwaukee, number 2. Number 1, Waterloo, Cedar Falls, Iowa. I have an uncle who lives in Waterloo who's an attorney up there. I would have definitely paid attention if this would have. What's the date on this article?
This is 2017.
So this is, fairly recently. One of the things that struck me when I first moved to this area 7 years ago, because I grew up in Des Moines, but so you were an artist with drawing and so forth. I was a professional actor and singer, and I lived in New York, and I was all over the world doing that kind of stuff. And then I went to graduate school in New Jersey and was in the military. I went to medical school in North Carolina. Anyway, I moved here, and the evening news, it was always someone shot in Waterloo, someone stabbed in Waterloo, and it got to the point where my wife and I started to almost joke about it. Like when the news was coming on, it was like, can we can we? Is Waterloo going to be in the news tonight? And of course, like I said, I've got an uncle that lives up there, and it's sort of like, wow, I'd love to hear a positive story about Waterloo every now and then.
But like the thing about it is like, outside of all that violence and all that stuff you hear, man, that's one of the most beautiful places you've ever been. Like I'm talking about as people. Like the people that live on the Waterloo East Side is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like they got that they just have that Southern drawl. We all from Mississippi, pretty much. Most of the people from Waterloo, black, they're from like the South. We migrated up here to work on the railroad back in the day, and so they still wave. You still get the folks waving at you. They don't gotta know your name. They still wave. That tell you that this is a nice town. This is a nice gesture.
I agree.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree.
So you still get that in the town, and that's important. That's super important. And I'm glad I'm from Waterloo. I'm happy to be somebody where it looks like it's like we the underdogs. We're the underdogs, and if I can do anything to help with that, like if I can use my story and if I can constantly keep saying that I'm from Waterloo, maybe that'll help some of the young people and some of the folks that give Waterloo kind of that bad rap a different perspective. Like when you hear about the Andre Wrights that's coming from out of there too,
right.
or even Jason Souls because he went to high school there too. So I think that's important just to be able to lift that town up and lift up the folks that live there because I still got a number of friends that live there.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that they become successful too in whatever they passions and whatever they want to do. Matter of fact, two of my friends that I went to college with, they from Waterloo, cousins, and my roommate was from Waterloo. Like we all left as a pact. I was the last person to stay though. Like after all they graduated and went on with their lives and stuff, but I was left. It was just me, my brother, and then my roommate. We was the last people left, and that's probably why I really started to really dive in on my art like I did. I was always good, but I was like, man, what am I going to do as a career?
Right. So had you finished at the community college and you moved back to Waterloo?
Oh, that's a long story. So what happened is that I kept working. We got in some trouble. And me and my brother scurry away in the night, pack up our stuff, and just leave. We just left Fort Dodge. I never went back. After that, I just never went back. And I went to go stay with my mom for like 3 weeks, and I said, oh, this ain't going to work, man. I'm an adult now. I haven't been here since I was 17 years old. I can't come stay with my mom. I had a little bit of money, so I ended up getting an apartment. And then that lasted for about a month in Waterloo. Then I ended up moving in with my wife now, fiance at the time. I ended up moving with her up in Cedar Rapids. So I was like, let me get away from Waterloo. And I moved in with her in Cedar Rapids.
Okay.
And when I moved in with my wife, I kept practicing. I had me a little area in the corner where, I would set up my computer and do work. But the work became a lot more serious, and I started to really just chase my passion. I left out a little part. I went to a semester of UNI. I went to a UNI for a semester when I stayed with my mom too.
Okay.
So I stayed with them, went to UNI for a semester, and then I left from there to go stay with my wife now, and yeah, I kept going as far as like the design stuff, and during that time, there was a show we used to always watch as kids. It was called Rap City, The Basement, and he used to show artwork from time to time. He would show artwork on his show, and like say he would lift up the artist and say, hey, look at this person and what they're doing and blah blah blah. I was enrolling into the University of Iowa at the time.
Okay.
And this was 2003. I was staying with my wife, and my brother had left. He went to the military during that time, but he came back. Before he left, he said, hey, I got to leave, but I think you should send your stuff into Rap City. Man, the stuff you're doing is amazing. Like, you should send this in. I think he would showcase it. I'm like, oh, whatever, man. I think I still need to work on it, blah, blah, blah. I'm about to go into school semester. All this stuff just started happening. And so I send the artwork in. He twists my arm. I'm like, all right, I'll send it in. Next thing you know, Big Tigger is on BET, Rap City, showing my artwork.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm like, what? Okay.
Is any of his art online?
I got a
Can we throw it
YouTube
up there?
video. If you go to it's Dre's art. It's a YouTube video that shows it. You might be able to say Andre, Rap City, BET, Rap City, BET,
How do you spell Rap City?
Rap
like
space.
Rap
yeah,
City.
like Iowa City, only Rap City.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was like Rap City. Like,
Yeah, like Bohemian Rhapsody.
Or say Dre art. It's on there somewhere. But anyway,
Even not the one that was on Rap City, but I just like to see some of your work. I don't know if there's
Put Dre,
on your
put
website or something like that.
DRE.
Rap City and Yo MTV Raps.
Yeah. So
Oh, it
anyway,
takes me back.
So they showed my work on here, and I would say for me, after telling you guys all this stuff about me, that was probably my first crucible moment,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, you know, you got the story of the local boy who now actually made it on national TV. At that time, we couldn't publish stuff on Facebook, but you know, everybody from my neighborhood and everybody from my area knew. They like, hey, we saw that, man. We saw
Right.
you on Rap City, man. That was amazing. What's you been doing stuff like that?
So 2003, you'd have been 25 or 6 or something in that. Something
I was
in that.
right in there, yeah. 25, 26. My birthday is July, so that changed everything. Again, that was a crucible moment for me. I'm enrolling into the University of Iowa. I'm commuting from Cedar Rapids to the university. Boom. First semester, I enroll into the art program. I'm walking down the hallway. There's a professor. Her name's Monica Correa. Remember, I mentioned earlier I never had a mentor before. She notices me walking through the hallway. I'm the only black person in the art department, which baffled me too. Like, why ain't no black people here? Why am I the only black person in the whole art department? Here we go again, you know. She singles me out and she says, hey, young man, come here. I want to talk to you. I said, okay. And so I walk over to her and she said, hey, there's this T-shirt contest coming up, and I think you should apply for it. And I was like, all right, well, you know, let me think about it or whatever. And she was like, no, we need to start working on this tonight. Like, I want to help you win this. I'm like, you don't even know me. You just saw me. She's like, I've saw you around. You know, she basically convinced me to start working with her. She became my first mentor.
Excellent.
I've never had a mentor before, but she became the first person to show me anything about design principles and like, hey, why are you choosing this font? Why is this a serif versus a sans serif? Why are you making that decision? Just really challenging my thought process. I ended up winning first place.
Yeah.
That was a big deal. I'm a freshman not a freshman, but I'm a freshman on campus.
First semester.
Big time, you know, like that's a big deal.
You definitely didn't win because you'd been there for X number of years and everybody knew you and loved you. I mean, clearly it was
design.
It was design talent.
Exactly. Design talent won. 9,000 students wore the shirt on campus. Everywhere I go.
What's that like, man? You're looking around, you're seeing it. I mean,
oh man, that was tight. It was my first time, you know, like, so it was like, man, that's super tight. What happened during that time though is I bought some screen printing equipment. It was like $1,200, and I had it up in my parents' garage. It had just been sitting on it. I didn't know how to use it. It was just sitting there, and when I won that contest, man, everything changed. I got a job. I got sought out from marketing and design. Said, hey, you should come apply for this job. I went and applied for it. Got a graphic design job right off the bat. I ain't never had no graphic design job. I didn't even know if that was even possible.
And this is while you're still in school at the university?
This is my first semester.
Okay.
I mean, literally, I haven't been there 3 or 4 months. All this stuff happened like
it was
like
baller. Like,
it was
you
like
just rolled in there.
Yeah, it was like BT.
Won the thing.
It was like BT, orientation T-shirt winner, and okay, here's a job for you. Like all within like 3 to 5 months. It was on, right?
It's like professional whiplash.
Yeah.
Like it comes in so quick.
It was fast. It was a boop, and then I was plugged in, and at that point everything changed. It was like none of that past stuff mattered. My whole life changed. I don't even remember Fort Dodge. Who was that person? I don't know that guy anymore. You know, like it's all like morphed into this new mindset, new person, new everything, new whole way of living. And
I can't imagine what that must be like. You know, whether it would be, you know, you see, if you go to a concert of a singer people like, they start a song, you know, and 10,000 people start singing the song with them. Like you have to be that guy on stage who wrote it, thinking to yourself, this is the most badass thing ever. You know, and if you're, you know, when you watch the red carpet, they, you know, they've got stars walking the red carpet, and they'll go, all right, so this actor is wearing this guy, this girl's wearing this person. Like, you're a designer. I mean, I can't even begin to imagine what that must be like.
Somebody got one of them t-shirts right now. They just held on to it.
Yeah.
I was going through my old portfolio stuff from during that time. Just the other day, I was in my office just cleaning up. Man, it's so interesting the way my mind thought back then versus now, because I don't do as much hands-on stuff. I'm more businessy stuff. You know, it's like I got family now, so it's more like morphed into something else. But man, I was like, man, I was a creative person, man.
Yeah.
I my creativity is different now. It ain't like it used to be. It used to be more hands-on. Like I would be more technical. Like I want to do something, but now it's more like the creativity is here.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's more holistic and more 3D, if that makes sense. And so a couple examples of that is you know, what we're doing right now. Like just thinking about, you know, New York fashion, we can just put that in perspective and then actually going to do it.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Like it's not like I'm like not drawing it. I'm not designing it. I'm saying, hey, this is an idea I have. From a creative standpoint, this is the way I see the runway happening. We gonna go do this. I already see how to do it. We just gotta go do it.
Now, you just got back from New York Fashion Week.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've seen it on TV when I used to watch Project Runway. That was what they would always talk about. I don't even know how you would even begin a process like that. So, you know, you have to apply, I imagine, and submit a portfolio, and then you have to think about coordinating with the models. And tell us about how was it in New York, but also the process of what you even do to begin that, and then what it was like when you were in Manhattan. Was it last week or the week before, something like that? You guys were both gone
2 weeks ago,
something like that.
Yeah. New York is amazing. It's an amazing city with a lot of energy, lots to do. The New York Minute thing is really real. It's like it felt like one long day. We didn't really sleep that much at all, you know. So the energy makes you just stay alive. Like you could be sleepy inside, but as soon as you step outside, it's like, what's going on? And I don't think anybody's ever felt any energy. If you've never been to New York, you don't know what I'm talking about. But if you've been, you know exactly what I mean. It's
New York has a heartbeat. I was saying that as a young man when I moved there, and other people would say to me, there are 3 cities in the world that have a heartbeat: New York, Paris, and Hong Kong. And I've been to Paris, and I disagree, but I'm biased. I think New York is the greatest city in the world. Sorry, every other city in the world that thinks they're amazing. I have not been to Hong Kong. I don't want to go right now.
No, not right now.
Shout out to everybody in Hong Kong.
Actually, you might want to go.
Stay safe. But
that dollar's probably pretty good right now.
What's going on in Hong Kong?
They got like
lots of protests, people getting killed, and
China's trying to control them. They want those ports. You know, they're the number one import place in the world.
Yeah.
Like anything you get has to go through Hong Kong.
Hong Kong is not part of China.
Yes, they're their own.
Unless you are Chinese, the Chinese government would claim there's several territories that
like DC then, in a sense.
They're independent.
But I mean, like DC is in a state; it's its own little entity.
But DC is part of America.
Okay.
Yeah, see, they're independent from all that.
So it's
own
different.
country.
Huh.
Yeah,
So Taiwan is another one. Tibet is another one where the Chinese government will claim. And if I'm getting this wrong, anybody who's into geopolitics, I apologize. But so the Dalai Lama can't stay in Tibet because the Chinese government will snatch him. So he lives in India most of the time. But Tibetans will consider themselves to be independent, whereas China would tell you it's part of the Chinese state or whatever it is.
Right.
I had a professor at Princeton who was from Taiwan. And same thing. She would have told you we're independent in Taiwan. The Chinese government would disagree with her about that.
You with us?
But yeah. So but no. When I was born and raised in Iowa, born in a little town. We moved to Des Moines when I was about 9. As a junior or senior in high school, we went to New York to see Rent with the original Broadway cast. I got out on the street in Manhattan the first time and took one breath and felt like I was at home.
Yeah.
And I couldn't explain it. And again, people that don't feel that way, you know how Sinatra's song goes, right? You make it there, you make it anywhere. My thing about New York is I don't know anybody who's neutral about New York.
Yeah.
Most people, you either love it or you hate it.
Yeah.
Especially Manhattan. Because where I lived in Brooklyn, and people laugh at me when I say this, there were more people in the building where I lived than there were in the town where I was born.
Oh, I believe it.
But in Brooklyn, it was, yes, in the greater New York area, there were 8 or 9 or 10 million people. But in my little neighborhood in Brooklyn, it felt like my little neighborhood in Des Moines. There was a grocery store and a dry cleaner and 5 or 6 restaurants. And unless you wanted to go into the center of Manhattan, which you didn't unless you had an audition or you went to see a play.
Exactly.
I didn't hang out in Times Square
right.
as a New Yorker. There's tourists everywhere. The hell do I want to be in Times Square unless I had to be there? But like, you find your own little neighborhood. But there's a heartbeat in New York,
of course,
that I agree with you. Unless you've been there, you can't. He's never been to Vegas, and one of the things I'd like to do is go to Vegas with Cooper, and because you can't. How do you explain Vegas to somebody who hasn't been there? How do you explain New York?
Cigarettes and lots of lights and a bunch of like ding 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 ding. And I'm only staying in Vegas for 2 days max. So if you ever take me to Vegas and y'all got a whole week trip planned, count on me leaving early.
Yeah.
Like I like Vegas. But I'm not a desert person.
Yeah.
And the heat, I do like it. I've been every year for the last 4 years. I go for the Magic Trade Show, but I didn't go this year because we were in New York around the same time. So. But
I agree with you. Nothing's like New York. The pulse, the energy. But if you're down, New York can step on you hard, obviously. But I always felt fortunate because even on my worst day, when I felt like auditions were just whipping my ass everywhere, I would walk the streets rather than take the subway, and there's just people everywhere. And languages and culture and food
everywhere.
And it is truly the city that never sleeps. 3:00 in the morning, it's almost as busy and populated and energetic as it is at 3 in the afternoon. It's quite an experience. Anyway, back to you guys going there and what Fashion Week was like and all that. 'Cause this is your first time being at Fashion Week?
No. So I've been to Fashion. No. I was there as a production manager in 2017. In fact, that's where we introduced our brand, Humanize My Hoodie, was during Fashion Week. I was a production designer for my friend Jessie Zhao and her show. She had a really awesome show, so I went out there to help her out. New York, man, New York Fashion Week was fascinating. It's so many emotions involved from the time we got there until the time we left. I mean, to describe it, I would say it was electric, energetic. It was emotional. It was amazing, inspirational.
So you actually had a show where people were wearing your gear, walking the runway.
Yeah, so we had our own show during New York Fashion Week. And yeah, how it normally works is you have to submit an application and blah, 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 and be a part of this specific organization. There's a lot of red tape to keep people out, but we did our own show. We said, we don't got to do all the red tape. We'll invite our own people. We'll add it as a part of the New York Fashion Week lineup, and we'll just do our own show. And so we just had to link up with the folks that were already kind of doing some of that stuff out there and then bring what we had to the table. So we actually had our own show during New York Fashion Week, which I think as a Midwest company to go out there and actually put that all together in that amount of time is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And work with 20 to 30 models and bring, ship, 30 hoodies out there, and then, the night before have our own art exhibit, invite folks, and people show up, and we announce it the day of, like a pop-up. And just that type of energy, I don't think we could find anywhere else. And to be able to open up a whole new market.
Mm-hmm.
Now, think about it. Like, all those folks that was there supported us. They all want to buy the hoodies, but they're not for sale. We're not selling anything that we had on the runway. But they all want to support what we're doing. And the models to this day are saying, I'm still getting messages, hey, that was emotional. This is the greatest show I've ever been in. I couldn't imagine ever walking for another show. I just want to work. They're saying stuff like that, which is, I hold that close to my chest. Like, that's a lot. I feel grateful that we were able to do something like that and really, showcase who we are and showcase the hoodie. And I don't think a designer's ever done that, where they've actually taken the hoodie of the show. Taken a hoodie and had so many different SKUs and styles and interesting shapes and forms and different stuff from one utilitarian product. That's, if we want to talk about a story, that's the real story about New York Fashion Week, is being able to take something that's a hooded garment and transform it.
Well, and that's where I want to go next, definitely. So we're looking at, Cooper's got some video up. We can see the show. It looks like it's really well attended. Looks like there's a lot of butts and seats, which is great. Is this at the end? People are kind of
the final walkthrough at the end.
So this isn't on camera because this is this will be kind of some of the highlights of what we work on.
Yeah.
One of the things I love about looking at all these models, for those of you that can't see it, is that it's many different shapes and sizes. So it's not just stick skinny people that you would think of as being models. They're all gorgeous, but there's a lady that clearly is a little bit heavier. There's a guy that's a little bit shorter. All different shades of color we're seeing both in the hoodies and on the faces. It's really that's gorgeous. Again, like this lady right here.
She was cold. We call her turn up.
It looks so different. It's really a collage of humanity.
Exactly.
Yes. Just gorgeous. Really. So tell us about.
I think when I do my designs, I'm all, all I've done. I counted my shows in my mind last night. Not to cut you off, but
no.
I counted my shows in my mind last night just in case you asked me that. I was like, how many fashion shows have I done? So to date, I've done 21 fashion shows in Iowa and nationally now. 21. I've been a part of 21 productions. And every production I've been a part of, I've tried to make it as inclusive as possible.
Mm-hmm.
This show had to be all black because we're talking about Humanize My Hoodie. I wanted it to be authentic to what it was.
Mm-hmm.
But in normal shows, I have multitudes of all different types of races all the time.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's a brick wall up against anybody trying to get into that industry.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't look a certain way, if you don't eat a certain thing, if you don't, and I was like, we tearing them walls down. I'm gonna be able to change that for some folks, and I have. Thinking about models, I think 7 or 8 of them have gotten actual real modeling contracts, and I would like to say that I've been a part of that process just because I've been able to give them a platform to showcase themselves in multitudes of times, not just once, but hey, why don't you come do this shoot? Why don't you be on this show? Hey, you should go try this out. You should go here, blah, blah, blah. So I've connected them in the industry to get to their career to where they can, get to the next level, So I'm honored and grateful to do that. At the end of the day, that's my joy too.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to have somebody come back and say, "Hey, man, you remember I used to do all the fashion shows? Look at me now. I just got signed to this deal, or I was just in this commercial and all that different stuff." Because I get those stories all the time, which is fascinating to me, and I think I feel grateful that I'm able to do that for people.
And that's just the beauty of networking. Because you seem like a very genuine person. I mean, I don't feel like you've been bullshitting me for the last hour, or maybe you have, and you're a fantastic actor. But I mean, but one of the nice things is that, so you have this project you're passionate about. You have models that you sort of help and you prop them up. They move on to stuff. You move on to stuff. They're now doing fashion shows for a bigger designer. They're talking to everybody about, hey, where was your last show? Well, I was the model for Andre Wright and Jason. So yeah, and who I totally want to get on the show, by the way.
For sure.
What's that? Well, it's this thing, Humanize My Hoodie. And then somebody famous recently came out for your line, and it was like, oh, but that. And then then the buzz comes up, and then they're doing something, and like, well, maybe can I get a hold of that guy? Sure, here's his number, and then you get a text, and it's like, hey, and you're like, oh my God, like, so that as long as and I spend a lot of time in the acting business. People that are genuine, that genuinely help each other for the sake of helping each other, promoting the art, moving their passion. Those people stay together and do beautiful things.
Sure.
One of my idols is Lin-Manuel Miranda, and I think he does that in the Broadway side better than anybody I've ever seen, because he clearly has made lots of money from In the Heights, and Hamilton has set him up forever, but he's still constantly working and propping up young artists and trying to bring people into the art that he loves, and you talk about breaking down barriers. Hamilton
For sure.
blew Broadway wide open in a way that Rent did when we were in high school. Hamilton blew Broadway in a whole new way. And I just think that organic building, that's what you're talking about with the community, and how do we, you said it earlier, and I wanted to come back to it at some point, how do we get past some of these barriers that we see with jackasses, with tiki torches and MAGA hats and whatever else, is we have these conversations, we see that we all have passions, we see where we intersect in common and not what's super different. But yet, so I'm a passionate guy. I couldn't design a necktie that was all one color, but I see what you do. I think it's awesome. You're coming on my thing here, what I'm passionate about, the kind of stuff I like doing. We now know each other. I would certainly help you out in any way that I could. I know Cooper is really fond of you as well. I mean, I think these kind of conversations and just getting to meet people and do stuff like that is so critical for how do we move forward as a country.
Yeah, I always say, man, and I say this at a lot of my shows, it's one of those things where it all comes back to understanding. If you don't understand me and I don't understand you, then it's probably not going to work. I mentioned earlier I moved into those neighborhoods for a reason. I think my parents did that deliberately so I could understand other people's cultures. Not because they wanted me to move me away from danger or violence, but they wanted me to understand, this is how other people live too. You got to be able to work along with these folks just as well as you're able to work along with your own culture. We don't do enough of that.
I agree.
We can't. You don't spend enough time in the neighborhood. I don't spend enough time in the white neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
You're not spending enough time on this corner. You don't spend enough time listening to this music. It's too divided.
Right, and in that division comes fear.
Exactly.
And you can and the more that we segregate, the more the fear builds, and you can see it with people that hate gay people that don't know any gay people.
For real.
People that are afraid of any race that don't know anybody. I was telling Cooper before the show, when I went into the military, all of a sudden I had friends of all different colors. And I remember this night will forever be seared into my brain. A couple of my friends and I, who were black guys from the South, we were having dinner at the Officers Club. And we began this exact conversation about why is it that we never talk about anything? And we decided that we're all smart, respectful people, and that we could ask any question that we wanted to. And over the course of the next few months, these amazing conversations came out where we weren't worried about offending each other because we were friends and we weren't going to say anything that was too, well, we were guys. It was going to be a little stupid, but not too stupid. But it allowed us to have these really open conversations. And the thing that really struck me is that, I could talk for hours about it, but I won't because I want to hear about you. But the thing that struck me, the more and more we talked, was that 95% of what we were talking about we had in common. And there were differences, And one of the things I think is really funny, and my friends used to say this, was that white people that aren't like tiki torch carrying white people are terrified of being labeled as racist.
Yeah, for sure.
So we say really stupid shit like, there's no difference between black and white culture. Yes, there is.
Yeah.
It's not racist to say that. It's racist to say, and therefore we're better than you.
Yes,
that's racist. But to
sure.
say, but thank God for black culture. I love jazz.
Yeah.
There would be no jazz if there, if there hadn't been, if there was no Bird, jazz would not be what it was. So thank God there's a difference. But people are so like locked up about, oh my God, I can't say that my friend is black. How do I describe him? This is my friends used to just laugh and laugh. They'd be like, oh, how would you describe that guy? Oh, here's
he's black.
He's tall. He wears glasses. It's like we don't do that. My friend said to me, Adam, if I sent someone to your office, I'd be like, he's like blonde haired. He's a white guy. He's about 6 foot tall.
Exactly.
I mean, it's like, but we don't. But that's the thing, is that you've got the overt racists, and then you've got the rest of the people. But if we have more conversations, then you realize it's okay to say, yes, there's a gay culture. It's different. That doesn't mean it's necessarily worse. There's a transgender culture. There's the difference between states. Yes, somebody from Boston is different than somebody from Oregon.
Right.
But race seems to have the ignition point is so, it feels so hot, and then we don't have the conversation. The divide grows, the fear grows.
Right. Yeah, it's one of those things where, understanding leads to love. Because if I'm understanding you, then I can love you. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I understand your culture and who you are and where you're from, what kind of food you eat, that's what it all boils down to. The more we get to understand each other, the more we can love each other. That's the truth with everything. That's why these shows are inclusive. These people, these models, when they leave, they become best friends. Like, they never knew each other before, but when they leave, they become like the greatest. I'm like, y'all wasn't even cool. Man, y'all just... But it made me feel good that they've connected and they got a bond just because of the fashion.
You're building a sense of community, back to what we were saying before.
Exactly.
Something I'd love to ask you on this topic. My last guest was the director of the Iowa Children's Museum, and we were talking about when do children, if ever, but like when do, so the bumper sticker is, hate is not a family value. And my daughter will be 4 next month. And when I watch her, my daughter wants somebody cool to play with.
Yeah.
She couldn't possibly care what religion they are, what color they are. If you're down to play, my daughter is down to play with you. She will play some paint. She will bounce in a bounce house. And like, as I look at that, I think to myself, at some point, when does it come in? Like, how, and because you have kids, like how, it shouldn't, but somehow it seems like at some point people get really self-conscious or weird about it, or I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I think like, if we're talking about racism and when do kids become racism, I think it's something that they see in the household or hear from the parent, especially because I have a 3-year-old. I know if I say a naughty word, she gonna be right behind me and she gonna say that naughty word. Then she gonna tell me that, Daddy, that's a naughty word, but you just said it too, though. Like, so you saying naughty word, you stop saying naughty words. I'm the daddy, I can say potty words. You can't say nothing like that, Yeah. But it's one of those things where it's like racism is taught. I feel like, to be 100% honest, some of the prejudice is in our DNA. Like, we can't change being prejudiced, but then when you add racism on top of that, it's like it's like pouring fuel on the fire, right? And the kids get taught that at a very early age.
Whether it's explicit or implicit, is that
exactly?
Yeah,
exactly. Whether they're saying it directly, maybe they had a bad day at work and they came home and said blah 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 blah, this effing whatever, or the parent is like, hey, let me sit you down. I'm gonna tell you how this is gonna go, and this is how you need to be acting. This is how you need to treat these folks, and if you treat them any different, this is what's gonna happen. Whether it's those lessons, and I think that's what's happened. Because it's like you said, my daughter the same way. She don't care. She just want to be, in good vibes and hang out and have fun. She don't care what you look like, what color you is. She don't.
We could definitely get our kids together, and,
no problem.
There wouldn't be a history. I mean, there was a really great commercial many years ago, and I remember it really clearly. There was a black guy and a white guy, and they were walking. You didn't know where they were walking, and you could hear the voiceover in their head, and they were both saying, "What's he doing in this neighborhood? Take your hands out of your pockets. He doesn't think you're whatever." And they came up to each other, and they both had a moment, and then they both turned and went up the stairs into church.
Yeah, see?
And it was, I remember it, it has to be 20 years ago or more, but I remember it clearly because I think, again, there's that thing about, we talk about, I would imagine there'd be listeners who would say, I would never explicitly teach my kids racism. But if you pull up the car to a corner and there's black guys on the corner and you lock the car doors, or we don't go into that store, or we don't eat at that restaurant. I mean,
exactly.
That kind of music is their music or something. Like it turns into, that's the implicit, like, oh, because kids aren't stupid, and I work with kids in my office, so they'll begin to parse out, oh, right, so that's black church versus we go to white church.
Yes,
and I'm sure on your side that there's parallels.
Same way. That's white church versus black church. They know. The kids are smart. They smart. We know that. And whatever you feed them up to that 5-year-old age, right? It's implanted, because they say, if your kid 5 years old, this is who they are. The 5-year-old, you can see the traits of who they're gonna become when they become an adult. It's from that age.
I agree. Well, and so those are called the formative years, right?
Yeah.
And there's a reason.
Yeah.
But I think I love conversations like this because I hear things that it makes me laugh, not at people, but I think it's so interesting. Joe Rogan had Killer Mike on, and he had a whole thing about how white people don't know that black people like white Jesus. And there was a whole thing about like pictures of white Jesus, and we all think it's so hilarious, and every black house has a white. And I thought, I've never heard you think this before. And he was going on and on about it and how everyone he knew. And I thought, man, like this is such an interesting thing because
it's true.
I've never heard that before, but I don't know, like it's
man,
it's
I grew
not
up
a thing
with
where I
white
grew
Jesus
up.
in my house too. I did. I don't know. I guess I never really paid attention to it, but now that you bring it up, I grew up with white Jesuses everywhere around my house. In my grandmother's house, my auntie's house, my uncle had white Jesus on his wall. Everybody did.
I mean, I remember again getting into like high school and college. It was the first time I ever saw anyone who had a picture of Black Santa Claus.
Yeah.
And it's like, first of all, this is a made-up person. So I don't know. It's not like you can say, oh no, that's definitely wrong. I mean, it's like, wait a minute, this is a made-up person.
Yeah.
We can make it. It's like with the comic book characters. It's like, wait a minute, damn it.
Yeah.
You can't say that Wolverine's whatever. It's like you made him up out of thin air. He's not a real person.
Exactly.
You could have cast anybody as Wolverine, right? But these are the kind of things that like it's so fun to be able to sit here and talk about and chuckle about, because so many people, there are many people who would not be comfortable in a conversation like this.
Yeah.
But it's so important, and that's, again, to try to bring it back to what you're doing. That's why, from what the videos I've seen and what I've heard about Humanize My Hoodie, I think it's so awesome what you're doing. So tell us about Humanize My Hoodie.
Yeah. So Humanize My Hoodie was a movement started by Jason Soul and myself to step out against threat perception. And the way we were being treated in hoodies, So we set out to destigmatize the hoodie. Jason was doing it in the classroom with actual criminal justice students who wanted to go into the profession and become either supervisors, or they wanted to become a corrections officer, or something in the lines of the justice of the law. And when Jason made a post on Facebook about humanize me before I die, #humanize my hoodie. I was like, man, that's it right there.
That's a winner.
That's it. And I said, and then I read his post more, and he's just wanted to do it academically. I'm like, nah, let's blow this thing. This is a worldwide thing, man. So I called Jason right away. I said, hey, man, look, I've been doing my thing with fashion for a while. I think we can do something with that term.
Did you know him before that?
Yeah, this was my childhood friend.
Okay.
So I've known him since I was 16 years old. In fact, the first person he met when he moved to Iowa was me.
Okay.
So he moved to Iowa, Waterloo at 16 from Chicago. And he moved into my neighborhood, actually Greenbrier, but across the street.
Sure.
And he wandered in my neighborhood, and that's how we became friends.
And he's a professor where?
At Hamline University, which is the oldest university in Minnesota.
Okay.
Yep. So he's a criminal justice professor there. He's been a criminal justice professor for 11 years now. And so he was in class wearing a hoodie every day, basically doing an experiment. And he did a pre and post test. He tested them with questions based on what they thought of black men or black people when they wore hoodies. So we got some pretty interesting data from all the students from his class. 97 people responded to the survey. And we hit the ground running. I mean, literally, we hit the ground running. In 2 weeks, I was in New York Fashion Week where we first showed it. We trademarked it right away. That was the first thing we did. I had never even done a trademark before, but I was like, I kind of like this one. I think we'll spend some money on trademarking that.
No, it's a good idea.
It was a good idea because we had so many fraudulent, like, Chinese companies try to steal. We had to write all these letters, these cease and desist letters. So luckily, we were able to have a trademark and be able to stand behind it and say, hey, look, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You know, this is not no garage thing. We actually are doing this for
This
real.
is, intellectual property.
Exactly. Yeah. So we protected it right off bat. Shout out to Mary Kate for helping with that. She's local attorney. And we hit the ground running, man. We started to give away hoodies to kids. We've given away over 1,500 hoodies thus far since we started our company. We regularly hold fundraisers for that. And we started to wear it on our bodies. And people started to see it. And then they started to ask for it. And then we started to ship them all over, everywhere. It really just took off. We began to get presentations. When we really realized that this was going to take off was we were at UNI, and Jason had an opportunity to give a keynote, and there were a bunch of Australians in town studying. There was a group from Switzerland and Australia, and you never seen a line. You would think that the bathroom was stopped up. They were all in line for these hoodies. They were all wanting to buy these hoodies, and it was unbelievable. And I'm like, well, how do they even understand what it is? At that point, we didn't care. It was like, this is interesting. How do they know what this is? But they got it right away. They understood what those 3 words meant. And we're like, I think we got something, man. And from there, we just kept building. We never had a business plan. We had a work plan every day. We'd jump on the phone call and say, hey, what's the plan for this week? And he lives in Minnesota and live here. So it's hard, try to do a business from 2 different states isn't
it's
that
tough.
easy, but we figured out a way that actually works for us. And it's been magical almost, it's like, even with all the obstacles of working with the constraints of like working out of state and that sort of thing, we've been able to very rapidly progress this idea into a project, and then from the project into a brand, and then from a brand into a movement, which is ultimately the story. The first year, again, we were just figuring it out. That second year, we really hit it hard. We began to have more of a business model, and we said, well, let's think of our revenue streams. So, okay, we got the product. We have the workshops where we train allies, and then we have the nationally traveling art exhibit, which allows us to talk about Black and Indigenous people of color through art and shine a different light on who they are as people. And right there, that's tearing down biases about how people think about others, right? Is now they're in a framed art piece, and we can have this conversation about race in America through art, which I think everybody has something to say these days, but they just don't know how to say it, nor do they have the place to say it. So we started creating these spaces, and we were calling them healing spaces, but they were actually art exhibitions. And we just get people together, and we actually talk about it. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about what this ancestral quote means with this art of modern day. Let's talk about that. We didn't add any color to our art for purpose, on purpose, just because we want it to be black and white. So, because color distracts. So I don't like that color. No, we wanted it to be straight up, black and white. You read it, understand it, wrestle with it, then let's talk about it. You have a chance to have a voice at this table with everybody else in the room, whether you're white, Hispanic, Asian, black, don't matter. Let's all talk about it. Let's give ourselves a chance to heal, because that's how we heal, right? It's through conversation. It's the more you talk about stuff, that's the way for you to heal.
Yeah, through understanding.
Exactly. And so when we started creating those, the project became really special, because for one, we got a very, very unique business model. You got to think, we're training, we're educating people, we're providing fashion, and we're providing art. All three different things. Those are all very, very different things, but they all work so well together.
Right.
And then at the same time, the ultimate goal for us is how many people we can affect. Not how much money we can make. How many people can we affect? How many people can we have this conversation with? How many people will actually wear this to try to get rid of the thought that black folks are a threat to society? How many people can we get to wear this? That was the ultimate goal. Like, how many people can wear this and have the conversation, and ultimately at some point in our lives we can take off the words "humanize my hoodie" because we've been humanized. It sounds very ambitious, but that's the goal.
Well, but you got to have a big vision like that. I think it's, you say it's ambitious, and can we ever get there? Maybe, maybe not. But the point is in the striving, right? And so that's great. So there are three elements to the movement, and that's cool. Even I didn't know that. Like, I thought it was, sort of a fashion line, and I think it's a really cool concept. When Cooper first told me about it, I thought, this is amazing. Because we've heard more stories than I wish were out there, and everybody else does too, of somebody pulling out a wallet and getting gunned down, or something like that. I don't know if you saw the interview with Kanye West and David Letterman on Netflix.
I saw that.
But one of the things, because he's gotten a lot of flack for wearing the red MAGA hat, and I just figured he was being an eccentric artist, or he was just whatever. But in that interview, for anyone who hasn't seen it, he basically talks about how he kind of does that because should you judge somebody just based on one piece of clothing, or does it make me not me if I have on a hat? And I thought that was an interesting take on it. And actually, because I'd heard about kind of what you were doing, and I thought this obviously isn't the same slant, but but the idea that why would you judge me because I'm wearing this article of clothing? Like, I'm no more likely to be a criminal wearing this piece of clothing than an actual criminal in a business suit that you wouldn't think of as a criminal. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, because the stats show, man. Like, why we as black folks, we gotta always dress up to be seen as being somewhat of a good person. Like, you got a hoodie on right now. You walk outside right now, ain't nobody gonna bother you.
Right, nobody cares.
But if I walk around in your neighborhood, this nice neighborhood that you got right now, with this black hoodie on with it pulled over my head, somebody liable to call the police on me because they say, hey, there's somebody walking through my neighborhood. He has kinky hair and he might be dangerous. That's very true. My father used to work on the dispatch for 20 years. He said he used to hear stories like this all the time. They couldn't tell who he was on the other end. You see what I'm saying? They didn't know they were talking to a black man, but the stuff that he hear from people unfiltered is ridiculous. It's sickening.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff we used to talk about. So I know how true it is. So I know with the hoodie, and I know with this, man, we lose our lives because we wear hoodies. Look at Trayvon. They had the hoodie as an exhibit on trial.
Yeah. That was certainly the first case that came to my mind when I first heard about your project, and it's just, so I think it's so important to shine lights on that, because again, it's, how do we begin to move forward from ridiculousness like that? Because like I said, like you said, if I wore a black hoodie with the hood up, I'm sure there's always one asshole in every crowd, but there's very few people probably in any neighborhood that would be like, oh, what's that guy doing?
Yeah, they ain't. They're not. They aren't. I'll be 100% with you. They're not. They're, you know, it's important to talk about this stuff just because with the conversation it leads to understanding. And once you understand it, then you can begin to love it. You see what I'm saying? Like if you can't understand the struggle of the black boy in the hoodie, you can't have a conversation about it. You can't talk about what's happening to black lives. Then how do you begin to change anything? You got to be able to talk about it. Everybody just in silos, sitting in their corners, not talking about this stuff. And that's why we started to create those spaces so we can talk about this stuff. We got to talk about it. You know, like how do we decrease mental health? Yeah, we talk about the stuff. Like we say, hey man, look, I have a mental health issue and I need some help. Who can help me? You see what I'm saying? Those are the things we got to be able to identify, self-identify that, hey, I'm dealing with some biases, some implicit biases. I think I need to be in these training classes, or I need to be around and understand more about culture. You know, like even me, that's why I began traveling. I was very ignorant. I'll be first to admit, I had to travel to understand that the Vietnamese is different than the Filipino.
That's
and the
right.
Filipino is different than the Cambodian. I didn't know that until I started to put myself in those situations. So we as human beings have to be open to put ourselves in different situations to become, you know, more enlightened about other cultures. It's important.
I agree. So I spent 7 months on a cruise ship. I was 21. I turned 22 on the cruise ship, and we went to 47 countries or something like that. This is before 9/11.
Yeah.
And so as a young man, it was so cool to meet people from so many different cultures, and I had never heard anybody hated America. First of all, I didn't know that because, I mean, I'd left America, but not for very long, on vacation, you know, for a few days here or there. And to meet so many different, nobody was ever really, really rude to me as an American. I mean, you run into, again, an asshole in every crowd, but like, I mean, but all over the world, including Egypt and Turkey, and nobody was rude about anything. But it was really cool to meet people from different places and kind of see these different religions and these different ways people lived. And it was so important in my formative years. So I appreciate the mental health shout out because I'm a psychiatrist, if you don't know that. But so I agree with you on both fronts. But I've been saying for years, I don't know how we would fund this, but I think all people in their teens should have to go abroad and spend a little bit of time abroad, because it would widen it, like you said, you know, these different cultures, and to begin to understand that different people respond differently, but that doesn't make it wrong. You know, it's so, we point so many fingers in this country, especially politically, like, well, those people that live in Pakistan are doing all this wacky shit. And it's like, if you were born in Pakistan and you were raised the way that they are, you would think the same thing. Exactly. No, I wouldn't. Jordan Peterson has made his career talking to people about, if you would have been a German guard during the war, you would have guarded the concentration camps. And people go, no, I wouldn't. I would have whatever. And Jordan Peterson goes, yeah, you would. Because if you were born into that and raised with that, you know, we have to at least psychologically think about, you know, before we get to judging everybody. Well, let's bring it closer to home than Pakistan. If I'd have been born and grown up on the east side of Waterloo, how different would I have been than having been born in Clarinda with 4,000 people and then moved to Des Moines when I was 9? By definition, I would have been a different person.
Oh, for sure.
You know, and you could argue good or bad. We're talking in hypotheticals, but there's no question my experiences during my formative years would have been different, like you moving the neighborhoods and experiencing on both sides.
Yeah, for sure, man. I had to. You know, and my parents put me in a situation like that. I had to be adaptive. I mean, it taught me how to be a chameleon. You know, like, when I'm in this situation, I got to be like this. And if I'm in this situation, I have to be like this. I can switch, you know, and that's okay. You know, not that I'm not being inauthentic. I just have these two different parts of me that I have to, you know, submit to when I'm in certain situations, you know. You brought up a good thing about just traveling. You know, I took my kids all through Europe, man. And they went to 7 countries. Was it? Yeah, 7 countries.
That's awesome.
It was important for me to do that for them, just because they got a chance to see other cultures and understand about these other people's lives and different ways to catch the subway. They rode on the train for the first night. Just stuff like that, so they can go back and tell their friends that there's a bigger world out here, because I don't think kids get enough of that. And I wanted to do it during their adolescent years, so they know that this is possible in their adult years. You can do that. You can just hop on a plane and go. It's not that hard.
Were people in general pretty cool to you in Europe?
What? Yeah, it was amazing. Europe was cool. It's not one of my favorite countries because I felt like everything was the same.
Okay.
Like I'm going to Italy. Oh, it's the same as France. I'm going to
the French and the Italians would disagree with you, but
I know,
but I get what you're saying.
You gotta. What I mean by there isn't as much differentiators between the two, even though I know they would agree. Yeah, did you do this or you eat
different
this?
languages,
exactly.
Different foods,
I know, but it
still
felt the same. I mean, from the architecture to the cobble streets. I mean, the whole vibe felt the same. Now, I'll tell you what felt different was Germany.
Mm-hmm.
That felt different than any of the other 7 countries that we were in. Germany felt real different. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because it was raining that day, but it felt.
They also had to rebuild a lot of shit after their country
They
got
did.
beat up a couple times in the 20th century there. But what's really funny, I don't know if you've ever been to Greece, but we went to lots of Grecian ports, is that most of the stuff's not still standing. And it used to crack me up because they would go, see that pile of rocks over there? That was Zeus's temple. See that pile of rocks over there? That was Athena's temple. Way on the hill up there is a pile of rocks. That was something else. And so it became a joke. Those of us that would go around in lots of Greek ports, it was like, let me guess, it's a big pile of rocks, because only in Athens is a lot of the stuff still standing. But so anyway, like that was definitely one where it was like, everything seems the same. Let's just enjoy this nice beach weather and get some food or something.
Yeah. I one of my things to do is like just traveling and learning about different cultures. I couldn't do this type of work, I don't think, if I wasn't being, learning about different human beings. That's important to know kind of what their struggles are, what their successes are, what kind of what they want to do with their life. I mean, you got to think I've been to 17 different countries. That's in 3 years. That's a pretty, that's, unless you've been in the military, most people wouldn't understand that. Like, what? How the heck are you?
Man, I don't even know how to get a passport.
You see what I'm saying? Like, and that's most Americans. And you think about the black population, we the lowest passport havers in the whole entire everything. We the lowest culture. We got the lowest passport rate. We don't travel. We don't go anywhere. We don't know anything outside of our neighborhood or Jamaica.
Or Jamaica.
Oh my God.
It's so wild the way you look at, you could look at it with you could just look at the situation, black people in America, there's no laws necessarily that, there's no segregation laws or anything like that we're dealing with. But when you look at the data, especially like the incarceration rates or things like, the number of people that have passports or 2-parent households or home ownership and things like that, like you look at the way that, you take a whole population and you enslave them, and then look at the way that impacts them. Even, how many years passed or out of slavery?
400 years.
400 years? That was 400 years ago?
No. The Civil War was in the 1850s.
Oh, yeah.
So if you want to, I wouldn't say 400.
No. Like, I'm talking about slavery. Yeah, it was 400. 1619, I believe. It was something back then, 1619. The New York Times just came out with a really good publication called 1619 when slavery first started.
Here to me is something I think is really interesting that I've been waiting to use in a conversation but haven't had the chance to until right now. So you're talking about coming out of slavery when the Civil War ended, and we could even talk about the 60s and Martin Luther King and so forth. But I read this really interesting thing that my brain likes to chew on things like this before I'm ready to spit it out and process it, but it blew my mind because I thought it was right on. And one of the things I've noticed is that in general, white people are not afraid of Asian people. So my first wife, she was Iowan, but she was adopted by a white family. She was Korean. It's very common for white people to like to date Asian people, whereas there seems to be a bit more fear, with the whole black-white thing. And this article was talking about that as the races were being lined up almost, black people got these very masculine stereotypes that scared white people, like good at sports, will be crazy with your women, and all this stuff that sort of terrified us. Whereas the Asian man, the stereotypes were very feminine. Does the laundry, small penises. Black guys have got great big hogs on them, right? Huge dicks. Oh my God, that makes white guys uncomfortable. But like you think about, so it was talking about the feminization of the Asian race versus sort of this not only masculine but overtly masculine to the point of danger with the black race. And I thought, wow, if you think about those stereotypes, what do Koreans do? They run dry cleaners, or something like that.
Asians do nail shops,
right, massage parlors, work on the railroad. It's such a different. No white people would hesitate to go to an Asian restaurant, but if it was an all black restaurant, like we talked about earlier, would some people be like, well, would I be accepted? So I thought that was an interesting. I never thought about that before.
Yeah.
But then again, as a white, blonde-haired, waspy guy from Iowa, I haven't encountered very much discrimination in my life. So I like talking to someone like you, and I hope you don't feel like we've sort of monopolized the whole conversation about race. But again, because for me, I have these thoughts and I like hearing conversations. But again, I can only think of a couple times that I ever really felt discriminated against in almost 41 years next month. So anyway, man.
Happy early birthday.
Yeah, coming up.
I'll tell you what, when I was going to college in Arizona, being a musician is how I've gotten most of my exposure to, other black people, and that's how I've made most of my black friends, is through music. So when I was going to school in Arizona, I met a producer through Craigslist, and he was a black dude, owned a studio, and he would come and scoop me up from the college all the time and take me back to the studio, and we'd chill out, have sessions, have drinks, go play gigs. And I couldn't make it home for Thanksgiving that semester, so he invited me to his family's Thanksgiving. And it was an all-black Thanksgiving. I was the only white person there. Number one, it was the best food I've ever had at a Thanksgiving dinner. And it was probably the hardest I think I've ever laughed in my life. Just because the dynamic it's amazing. It's beautiful. It really is. It's a beautiful culture, filled with beautiful people, and so much art, man.
Yeah.
What y'all have done artistically, it's amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
What I think is interesting about that, again, though, is there are people that would be afraid to say what he just said.
I know.
One of my favorite examples is, so I love stand-up comedy. So I grew up in Iowa watching stand-up comedians like Chris Rock saying, black people yell at the screen in the movie theater, and I'd never experienced that. I got into the military. All military bases have a movie theater. They do second-run movies. It's literally 99 cents for every one, and then the penny, they have a big bucket because it goes to charity. First movie I went to on the base, everyone yelling at the screen. It was Van Helsing, the one with Hugh Jackman. Everyone's don't go in there, monster in the whatever.
Yeah. And it's like a Dracula movie.
Yeah, well, so Van Helsing's a monster hunter. And I was sitting there thinking to myself, I'm enjoying this. Like, this is what the stand-up comedians talk about, but I've never experienced this before. But there'd be people that would be afraid to say to a black guy in front of him, like, I tell that story because what if you now judge me and go, oh, is that motherfucker saying that all black people yell at the screen? What an asshole. But you've been talking to me long enough now that, I'm once again, there was a difference in that movie theater, but I thought it was cool. It was something I'd heard about. I'd never experienced.
It leads back to what I was saying earlier. All it takes is understanding. If people take time out to understand the other culture, that changes everything. It changed everything for everybody. I'm telling you. It's just all about understanding. You just got to get to know other people and to communicate with them.
And I think
that's why I travel. I mean, if I wasn't able, I don't know if I would be enlightened to even be able to say that as much if I hadn't been able to experience travel and go places and meet people and understand culture and, maybe I would still be ignorant to that sense, right? But since I have, I feel like I can speak educated about, just as the places I've been and the people I met, and and being in very difficult situations and figuring ways out, just life stuff,
We're all very tribal and team oriented, and so if you look at one of my problems with the military and why I wouldn't have made it for a career is they attempt to demonize the enemy and make them not human. Because it's if something's not human, killing it is not as difficult, right?
Yeah,
I mean, so the Nazis said that the Jews were not human. They were closer to monkey than to people, therefore so forth. And I had a problem with that. But here's the bottom line. Like I said earlier, what we have in common is so much more. So let's pick a country that we're sort of told to hate. Iran comes to mind. The people in Iran want to feed their kids, raise their kids, have some fun every now and then, pray to their God, go to work. For the most part, people in Iran are not being like, let's go bomb the shit out of somebody. They are just wanting to live life. And we only get so many years on this earth. For all we know, it's the only life that we get. And if we understood that, that makes it... This is why the movement in the 60s against the war in Vietnam was so powerful, because it was like, we're bombing people that are wanting to do what we're doing. They're wanting to live, and they're wanting to just, and especially having a kid, I see the whole world so differently now, because we were all kids. We were all held in, hope most of us were held and cuddled and told,
we love
love you. The world is your oyster, and that's not that's not different in Iraq or in Pakistan. Those parents love their kids too. They're just trying to make ends meet and get some food in their kids and tell them to shut the hell up and go to bed at night.
Exactly.
I mean, it's the way that it is, man.
Yeah, no, it's the same. You're exactly right.
So you've gotten some traction definitely with the Humanize My Hoodie. I'm totally going to blank now on, but as you said, the movement's grown. You're starting to get, you're getting national attention, right?
Yeah, we got some national attention. We got conversations with Target happening. We got conversations with Foot Action, Foot Locker. So we've actually expanded. This is our year 3. We just did New York Fashion Week. So obviously we definitely on the national schedule. We're looking to go global. We got some folks we've been talking to from across other countries that are interested in bringing us in to have presentations happen. So it's just, it's an honor, man. It's just, I'm just happy and humble at the same time that, people can recognize the work and really want to lift the work up, because it's a conversation, again, that I feel like must happen. Because with that conversation, we can begin to change the hearts and minds of people everywhere if we can have that conversation,
Give us the inside scoop. Which countries are you going to expand into? Can you tell us, or is it top secret?
Not top secret. We looked into UK. We've looked into China, Beijing. What was the other one? It's another country in China, but I can't even pronounce the name of it. It's like Yexang City, something like that. It's something something I can't even pronounce. So don't make me do that one. We all over, man. We just trying to be all over. Our nationally traveling art exhibit is going to be in Atlanta. We got Phoenix. We got Tennessee coming up, Cincinnati. So we'll begin to have the conversations that we were having here in the Midwest, on the coast, and also in the South.
Is there a website that tracks where the art exhibit's going to be?
Yeah, if you go to Humanize My Hoodie on our events page, you should be able to see when the next art exhibit is and where it's going to be at, and that's all that good stuff.
So one of the things we'll make sure we do on all the different platforms we use is down below in the descriptions, we'll make sure that we have your website and any other social media stuff that you want us to have there, because we obviously want people to have this conversation. We want them to be able to check out your stuff. I'd love to go to one of the art exhibits. I think that'd be awesome.
Kirkwood, October 22nd.
In Kirkwood and Cedar Rapids?
Yep, Cedar Rapids. Yep. Kirkwood and Cedar Rapids, so on their campus. I don't know exactly which building. I need to get more of that information, but I know we're having it there.
So hit me up for that one. We'll make sure we have each other's contact information.
Sure.
I have your phone number, I know, but yeah, definitely let me know about that because I definitely want to roll in and see that if it's going to be that close.
Yes, right there. Yeah, for sure.
It's just because again, I think that's really great. I think that as well. You talked about the people from Switzerland and from Australia. I still remember in high school. I think it was high school, seeing some of my classmates wear FUBU stuff, and there was a big stigma about white people shouldn't wear FUBU because it's not for you, but doesn't that then create a divide? Whereas I guess I would assume that if I would have showed up today wearing a Humanize My Hoodie shirt, you wouldn't have been like, dude, that's not for you, because that's not the vibe that I'm getting from you.
No, I would have said, just be ready to have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're gonna say, humanize my hoodie as a white person, fine, that's great. We appreciate that. But be ready to have some ammo and have that conversation. That's why we started the ally trainings. Because if you want to support the movement, and we do need allies, people to support the movement from resources, we need people to help us challenge policies. We need fundraising for kids. We just need folks on the ground that can help us really just blow it up. And that's what the allies are there for. They're here to support us along our mission and make sure that, if we need help with anything, they like, hey, you need help with writing? We got you. You need help with this? We got you. So whatever ball me and Jason aren't able to pick up, the allies, come in and they support us along that lines, and they know what we're fighting for. So just know that if you do wear the hoodie, that you have something to say.
Sure.
And behind it, like, you got the proper ammo. Like you're saying, the reason why I'm wearing this is because of X, Y, and Z. And we help you craft them statements in those ally workshops. So we help you put that together so you have some ammo. So when someone asks you, like, hey, man, why you wearing that, man? That's for black folks. I know who they talking to. That's not for you. You could say, I know who it's for. The reason why I'm wearing this is so I can have a conversation with you about this.
Yeah.
Now the dialogue's open and you could talk to folks about it, right? You can have the same conversation we having with them. Help enlighten them. That's how we change their hearts and minds. So we do need you to wear it. So wear it.
I'll definitely order some stuff, and after this length of a conversation, I'm going to say that Andre Wright is my friend, and
no doubt.
And we talked about this, and
no doubt.
We still have a little bit of time. We turn into a pumpkin in about 2 hours, so we still have a little bit of time. Sure. One of the things that I think is very apropos to this conversation is to talk a little bit about the political climate in America, because so I was a big volunteer both times that President Obama ran. I was in North Carolina for medical school the first time he ran. North Carolina went to Obama for the first Democrat since Truman. I could talk about that forever. Some of the things I heard from the campaigning we were doing in North Carolina floored me in 2008. We were talking to voters that thought black people couldn't vote, and there were small town sheriffs that were propagating that to a lot of the sort of the poor rural black folks. So since I'm surprised I haven't told you this story. Let me try to make this as short as I can. So in North Carolina, when I volunteered, I figured they were going to put me in the Raleigh-Durham area where I was going to school. But they sent me out with volunteer teams out into outer North Carolina. And this is a true story, an actual conversation I had with an older black lady in the hills of North Carolina. And she said to me, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. Rich white kid like you coming up here lying to black folks. Now, the first thing I'll say is that I certainly wasn't rich then. I didn't have shit back then. But anyway, and I said to her, whoa, I mean, what makes you think that? And she said, you know black folks can't vote, and you're up here telling me whatever else. And I said to her, no. So we went through all this kind of stuff. And she said to me, I said, well, there's a black man running for president. And she went, see, now I know you're lying to me, and you should respect your elders. You shouldn't be lying to black folks. Ain't no black man allowed to run for president in this country. And we had pictures of him because they didn't have a lot of TV. There was mostly radio, and they didn't get very many stations. And so I showed her his picture, and she goes, okay, smartass, what's his name? And I said, Barack Hussein Obama. And she went, see, now I know you're lying to me. Ain't no one named Hussein running for anything in this country. Hussein's the guy trying to attack us over in Iraq. So there was a lot of, so what we did was trying to get people registered and get them to the polls, and had to navigate how do you get people signed up in a state where I wasn't from. And it's pretty easy in Iowa. You would think every state's a little bit different. And so I was just floored. And then Barack Obama to me is an absolute inspiration for numerous reasons, not just because he's the first black president. Yeah. I often say, I don't want to do Skype for this show. I want to do face-to-face conversations, and then I talk about how I ask every guest, I want to have at least an hour, but 2 is better. I joke that if I would fly literally anywhere in the world for 5 minutes with Barack Obama to have him on the show, just because to meet him would be such an inspiration to me. And I felt like, and maybe this is naive, maybe this is again this me being a white guy in the Midwest, even though I was on the East Coast in Carolina, but I felt like we were moving in such a good direction. The conversation seemed to be going in good places. My gay friends seemed much more accepted. And then 2 years ago, I was as shocked as anybody when what happened and President Trump got elected. I mean, what's your take on and then everything in Charlottesville? I mean, what's your take on sort of the political climate, and what was your take on Obama's presidency and anything like that?
Try to stay a little closer to
I think it was a disaster. My daughter woke up crying that morning, when Trump got elected. And, I was trying to comfort her and tell her it's going to be all right. There's been worse things that happened to us. Well, I don't know anymore. I think this is pretty bad, as far as like, the bigotry, the hate, the division between cultures. I mean, he pretty much, as the president has the American people right where he wants them. If that's what he's selling and he's promoting, he's doing a really good job of it, and it's caused a lot of problems in our country. I think, to be 100% honest, Barack Obama was the silencer on the gun. They put the silencer on the gun because at that point we were ready. I think the culture and the people in the culture were sick of this shit. We were ready it was going to be an uprising, and Obama was kind of calm down. You guys got a black president now, so be cool. Go over here and be cool. Don't be messing with our government. That's okay. I mean, I think that's what. I mean, to be 100% honest, that's what I feel like Obama was. I mean, he gave us a chill pill. We like, hey, we got a black president. We cool. We back straight. Hey, put them guns away. Don't do as much. But now, with Trump spewing hate everywhere, and it's back on the same flare that we kind of patted out, that fire that we patted out with Obama. Now it's bigger than ever because we didn't solve that problem back then when Obama was in office. See, Obama was good for holistic world relationships, like connecting with the rest of the world. I don't know if he was so good for black people. Okay. I don't think he was. I think he did right by the LGBT community. I think he did right by passing them laws and making sure that it was equal rights for anybody when it came to like marriage. I think that was great. But if we being specific about Obama, let's be 100% honest. I didn't see any change in my life. Because he became president. I felt the same as I do almost kind of now with Trump. Not the same, but I mean, there's not as much hate out, and I think I was a little bit more prideful. Like, hey, we got a black president, but it didn't change nothing in my life. The only thing, and the worst thing about Trump is that he stacked the Supreme Court justices so bad. It's going to carry on for centuries. Like it'll be they can't be unappointed. So it's like he's got, even when he leaves, it's gonna be he's still there.
Well, and the whole thing about Obama still had 9 months in office, and you know, and our own senator Grassley, you know, on the Judiciary Committee, they wouldn't see Obama's nominee. I mean, and these are people that read the Constitution and touch themselves. You know, oh my God, it's the Constitution clearly states that the president appoints, but they were holding out, hoping a Republican would get elected. So one of the things, I don't want to get too far off this, because this is why I asked you the question. You know, this is why I have conversations with interesting people. You know, because so if what should Obama have done differently, or when Andre Wright gets elected president, you know, and I'll be on your campaign team, like what would have been some better moves, or what are some things that you think ideally should have happened that would have helped put the fire out, not just, you know, throw a wet towel on it for a few years and then pull the towel off?
Well, it all boils back to economics and infrastructure. Let's be 100% honest. You live in this really nice neighborhood, but if we go over there on Taylor and Davis and all that, why is the neighborhoods in the streets and all that, why is it tore? Why is there liquor stores everywhere? Why is it like that in those neighborhoods, but it ain't like that right here? You see what I'm saying? So the infrastructure, I think Obama could have done a lot for black culture as far as infrastructure. Let's put some stuff in place to minimize what actually goes into these neighborhoods and actually increase. Man, why couldn't we have a community garden in every black neighborhood? Let's start there. We know the black population is on the bottom, right? Let's just be 100% honest. We know that. As a country, we know that the black folks is on the bottom and there's white folks is pretty much on top. Let's just be 100% clear. If you know that, then where do you go give the help? To the folks that's on the bottom. The people on the top already have enough to be able to take care of themselves and be sufficient. But these folks don't. So economically, how do we help stimulate some stuff in those communities with health, wellness, and resources to build up those communities so they could at least have a chance to fight for themselves? That's what I didn't see.
Okay.
Even with all the programs and everything that was happening, I think he had some brothers, sister program. No, he was our greatest president. I'm not even going. Obama was one of the greatest presidents to ever sit in that seat. But as a black man, I know what he did for the black culture. Not saying that he wasn't smooth, he wasn't cool, he was everything we wanted him to be. Great speaker, great, very, very nice human being. But if we talking about specifics, that's just what I saw from my lens.
Yeah.
And I think he could have provided a lot more resources, and maybe he was that the person to calm us down and for us not to, you know, really have the uprising that was bound at some point it's gonna happen. You know, whatever. Let's pray to God that I'm an optimistic person. I pray that nothing terrible happens to anybody, but at some point it's the boiling point, right? With the world coming to a sense of where we got global warming, we got hate and fighting, we got mental health on the rise, we got people shooting up schools, we got people, you can't even go on a date with your girl now because you're afraid you might get shot in the movie theater or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So we got all this stuff that's happening around us, and sometimes it feels unhopeful. You know, like, man, you know, I got 3 kids, so definitely I want to be optimistic about how we can change things in the world. And I don't know if you guys saw there's a Bill Gates documentary.
Called Inside the Mind of Bill Gates or something like that on Netflix.
Yeah, it's really good because he's now on climate
yet.
change. That's his thing, and he tried to create this. He's using nuclear energy to create less CO2s or carbon, whatever, you know, whatever. And right when he was about to launch it, what he was going to launch his partnership with China. This was like a few months or a few weeks back or something, like whatever happened. The tariffs kicked.
Oh yeah.
Trump kicks in the tariffs, so he has to stop his project, which could save the planet.
Yeah.
you see what I'm saying? So it's bigger than race right now. It ain't even a black and white issue. It's like us versus the machines.
I agree.
It's us versus it's the rich versus the poor. It's still black and white.
Try to stop banging the table because the mics.
So it's rich versus poor. It's us versus the machines, and trying to slow down autonomy. You know, and then it's us. There's still the racial thing right there. There's still so much racial tension. And like, we should be so past that. Like, you ain't like, oh my God, we should be so past that. But people want to antagonize it and make it about that. Like, I got this and you can't have this because of this.
Yeah.
You know, and it's one of those things where it's like, when we talk about Bernie Sanders from a socialist standpoint, I agree with him on that level. How do we get this to just be across the board and be, you know, why does this man have billions of dollars, but this homeless guy, he ain't got nothing? Why you got 25 houses in your, but this guy don't got one sandwich? Like, why he ain't got no sandwich,
One
man?
of the things about Bernie and all of his socialism talks. So you know, I mean, we have about 5 minutes left or so, but Cooper knows where I'm going to go with this, because I've heard, how do we bring up economically depressed people? Automation coming in. You follow Andrew Yang at all?
I've been watching. I've been paying a little bit of attention to Andrew Yang. I believe in some of his methodologies, but I'm not at this point in my life with politics. I don't really care to look. The Democrats and the Republicans, red or blue. Look, I'm not choosing any side.
Sure. It's back to that team thing. Like,
Yeah,
like,
man,
like if I'm on Team Red, every single thing they do is terrible. That's stupid, and it is on both sides.
Because I'm like, to be 100% honest, I'm somewhat of a capitalist. I'm a businessman. How can you be I guess you can't be a socialist business guy, but I'm more like, I'm about profit at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it would jeopardize my integrity or my values of who I am. Like, if it's something that I don't believe in, I don't do it. I don't care how much you're going to pay me. But at the end of the day, I got a family to feed, so I am about profit.
Yeah.
You know, as much as I talk about, you know, the person with 25 houses and the guy who's starving on the street,
Mm-hmm.
I wish there was a way to help this guy on the street so he can go get his 25 houses too. That's just the way I think. Yeah. I'm not thinking like, well, just because I have 25 houses, I got to give him one because he ain't worked a day in his life. I'm not that person.
Right.
But I'm the guy who says, if you're working hard, you get what you deserve. If I work hard, I want what's mine. And I shouldn't have to share if I don't want to.
Right. So equality of opportunity is different than equality of outcome.
Yeah.
That's the bumper sticker, you know.
Yeah.
It's again, we'll have you back on and talk about it, but one of Andrew Yang's key platform piece is universal basic income.
Yep.
And one of the things you'll hear him constantly say is you can't do financial education with people that are financially depressed. I mean, how do you begin to have a conversation about money with people that don't have any money? And it's a great point. And I'm not hook, line, and sinker for Yang yet, but I think that his general ideas, as I look at, you know, the idea of every American over 18 would get this dividend, and, you know, how that could sort of begin to, especially with automation being more and more. I mean,
somebody gonna lose their job.
A lot of people are gonna lose their job, right? And that's one of the things that he's trumpeting, and he's the only candidate saying that, and everybody else kind of goes, yeah. But one of the things, so my prediction, and I like Yang, I think that he probably won't get the nomination, but something's going to happen, and he's going to be the one that was talking about it, and we're going to see a Facebook meme of him going,
I told you so.
Like, you know, when all these truck drivers and factory workers and whatever are losing their jobs, and there's no UBI in place, there's not even a plan. So, I mean, my idea,
it's gonna be straight up anarchy, and the people that's fat at the top is gonna get ate up by the people that's on the earth starving.
Well, I'm gonna earn all my nerd points for this, but do you know where the word sabotage comes from? So a sabot was a wooden shoe in whatever country it was from, and the workers threw their shoes into the machines to break them up. So because they were losing their jobs, hence the word sabotage. So I mean, this is tale as old as time. The wheel comes along, people are not as needed. You know, the computer comes along, whatever. I mean, there are thousands of examples. I mean, one of my family's favorite stories, my daughter is the 8th generation of the Woods family born in Iowa. My great-grandfather thought that my grandfather was such a lazy son of a bitch because he wanted to buy this newfangled thing called a tractor. And Woodses have always farmed with horses, god damn it. And not on this farm are we going to have, but I mean, so with technology, so think about how many fewer horses are now needed for work. So now horses either become playthings or racetrack, or there's so many horses. I mean, we're talking about humans here, obviously, but I mean, it's the same general idea. If you don't need, well, see, I am so guilty of this. I love the self-check at the grocery store. Or the Target or the Walmart. You are out like that. You don't have to stand in the line forever. I'm usually not getting more than a couple of things. Like, I'm not getting a big cart usually. Yeah. You know, because I don't know about you, but my wife texts me and goes, hey, we need more applesauce for the kid. So I swing by. My office is right by the whatever. And I go beep, and my fat ass is out of there. Yeah. You know, but it's like, I mean, but that's, every time I do it, ever since I've gotten into this, I was not really being more aware of the automation. But now you can order food at fast food restaurants by the automation. The people are not gonna, because you're a businessman. I've run businesses. People and physical space are by far your biggest expenses. Not materials, not advertising. It's you know, I mean, so. You think about businesses that are almost entirely online, so physical space becomes not as big of an issue. If you can cut your workforce way down, part of me is like, man, those are so many jobs. But part of me is like, you can't blame the small-time entrepreneur. Not everybody's, Walmart and has so many people that they can. There's a billions of dollars industry. I mean, it's coming, and that's why I think Yang will be remembered at least a little bit for being one of the first people trumpeting, you know, the problem on the horizon.
Oh, for sure. And he's been I've been in some settings with Andrew Yang, and I've heard his presentation. And I think he's very impressive. The whole quantum leap and singularity and all this different stuff he's talking about is very next level. And I don't think people, as human beings, if you're not up on it, you don't understand what he's talking about, like this whole G5 and you know, like it's about to get, or 5G, not G5, but 5G with the phones. It's about to get wicked. Yeah. And once that stuff kicks in, we just better be able to buckle up and be ready. So all my people that's hustlers, you're going to have to really be hustling. Yeah. And the people that's working, you really going to have to work your job. And because, again, it's going to be not racism, but it's us versus the machines. Yeah. The machine's going to run fast, and we better be able to keep up. Otherwise, you'll lose your...
See, I've seen that movie. It never turns out well for the humans.
Nah.
Andre, we just crossed 2 hours. Such an interesting conversation. I feel like we could talk for another 2 hours. We'll definitely have you back. Before we sign off, we always like to do two things. One, this is conversations with interesting people. Any people that you know that are interesting that you think would be great to have on the show, I would love to get any of the contact information. We're just trying to have conversations and just meet new people and share it with the world. And number two, I want you to let us know how we can connect with you. You want to pitch anything, dates, social media handles, your website, where we can find you, and then we'll wrap it up, man.
Okay, no doubt. So if you want to get a hold of us, just go to humanizemyhoodie.com. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all social media platforms. Humanize My Hoodie. Simple.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Cooper, any final words?
I'm good, man. This was a fantastic.
This is great. This is great. Thanks again so much. Thank you. Thanks to everybody who's watching and listening. We hope you enjoyed the episode. Peace. And we'll see you back for the next one. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.